My Stihl FS 40 strimmer refuses to start, not even a cough. Only used a few times from new. New fuel tried. Good spark and fires if a bit of fuel put in combustion chamber prior to replacing plug. Hence suspect block jet. Carb appears clean as a whistle, but fine wire will not go down any of what appear to be jets. Which holes should wire pass all the way through? Are any jets removable? Is there a drawing of the carb available anywhere? Thanks in advance. Dan 49.
Hi. Stihl do not provide in materials that we can send you. They are funny like that. Most other brands do have a manual or at least some kind of information, but Stihl do not want this information released to customers. There are no holes that a wire could pass all the way through. In fact, if you try, you can damage the carburetor. Most likely the problem is that the small passages have been restricted and will need to have the carburetor cleaned and rebuilt with a complete carburetor repair kit. These parts are usually only available at a Stihl dealer. Actually, some other dealers can look at the carburetor and get you a kit that is similar and will work. I will send you my complete carburetor and gasoline answer that should help. There is even a possible quick fix, mechanic in a bottle, that could help you. Keep in mind that this carburetor answer was written to help a lot of different types of carburetors. Both a diaphragm carburetor as you have and also the float type carburetor that is not like yours. So some of information will not apply directly to your unit. Thank you for allowing me to help answer your question for you. Please understand that my job is to try to give you some suggestions that might be of help. My job is not to repair your unit for you. Please understand that in many cases, the problem may not be able to be solved over the internet. There are times that it needs to be seen in person to be able to correctly diagnose the problems. I will do my best to try to help you. But I am not always correct. Remember, I am only working from information that the customer supplies. Please do not leave a rating until we are finished with our attempts, which could take several messages back and forth between us. A less than good rating will prevent me from being paid for my time and will hurt my status. There may be several messages made before we are finished. Please leave a good rating for me or I will not be paid for my time. And my time is what you are actually paying for. If you have additional questions or need more information, please continue to contact me and I will be happy to try to help further. Even after a good rating is given. Okay, now for the answer. Most likely the problem you have is that the carburetor is restricted or plugged because of fuel that was left in the carburetor while it was stored. Fuel cannot be used if it is over 30 days old. Also, this old fuel will not burn correctly and will cause other issues as well. In many cases the carburetor should be removed and cleaned and rebuilt with a new carburetor repair kit. Even if an engine is run dry, there will still be 10 to 12 drops of fuel left in the carburetor. This is what turns to gum and varnish and dirt and restricts the passages in the carburetor. Also keep in mind that even if this is a brand new unit, you can still have the same carburetor problem. This is because of the fuel that the factory puts into it when they are testing it. They then run it dry before shipping it. But there is still some fuel in the carburetor. I do have a possible quick fix for you, but you must use what I tell you. Do not use regular carburetor cleaner such as gum out or something similar. These carb cleaners will ruin the rubber parts of the carburetor. Here is the possible quick fix. There is one good thing you can try. It is called mechanic in a bottle. It is usually available at Home Depot, some Walmart stores, or many auto parts stores. Even some mower repair shops. We carry it at my store. It is very new to the industry and is the very best. Here is the website that should tell you more about it. http://www.bigfuelsolutions.com/html/mib.html. Mechanic in a bottle is designed to help clean the carburetor without damaging the diaphragms and rubber parts like regular carburetor cleaner. Click on the site above and it will tell you all about it. This helps sometimes, but other times it does not, and the only solution is to clean and rebuild the carburetor. It is available at Home Depot and good mower shops. It is also available at Amazon.com. Here is their website info. http://www.amazon.com/BeckSolutions2004 mechanic bottle/DP/B0058DC7Fa/ref equals SR_1_1 E=UTF-8 and CAD equals 1314848015 and SR equals 8:1. Here are the instructions on how to use the MIB. http://www.bigfuel.com/documentation/MIB instructions 031312.pdf. The mechanic in a bottle is not a conventional carburetor cleaner. It actually breaks down the varnish and alcohol and water into its molecular components, and it completely dissolves these substances. It does not clog up the jets as conventional carburetor cleaners do. Conventional carb cleaners just loosen the varnish, and the varnish particles will go into the jets and filters and clog them up, usually causing much more problems that was originally there. The conventional carb cleaners also will loosen the gunk that has formed in the gas tanks and cause all of that gunk to go through the carburetor as well. The mechanic in a bottle is a completely revolutionary product that will in many cases alleviate the need to tear the carburetor down and rebuild it. Unless there is mechanical wear and tear that would require that parts be replaced. In addition, the special formula actually is designed to soften and restore the rubber parts in the carburetor, such as the needle and seats and gaskets. Mechanic in a bottle is not a cure-all, but it can help the customer get going in many cases without them having to tear the carburetor apart. If the customer is not mechanically inclined, it might save them a trip to the repair shop. Yes, I was very skeptical about this product when I first was introduced to it, but the distributor demonstrated it, and we have tried it on many occasions with terrific results. Many of the JustAnswer customers have come back to thank me for telling them about it, and it solved their issues. Here is some information that I got off their website. Varnished carburetor? Fuel gone bad? Water in the tank and carburetor causing corrosion from ethanol? Fix the unfixable. Mechanic in a bottle removes all varnish in the fuel system without having to remove the carburetor from the machine. Add to your gasoline and you will be able to clean varnish and carbon. Restore old fuel by separating the hydrocarbon chains that have bonded together since the fuel has deteriorated. An octane booster is added to replace the lost octane in the decayed fuel. We do not use any metals in our formula to increase the octane. Remove carbon deposits from combustion chamber components, including the combustion chamber, pistons, rings and valves. Dual lubricants condition the rubber and plastic components. They also rejuvenate and protect the rubber gaskets and seals that may have been dried out from ethanol. After the fuel is burned in the combustion chamber, a synthetic lubricant remains to lubricate the entire upper combustion chamber, such as piston rings and valves. Instructions. Poor running engine, no detrimental effects if overdosed. Mix 2 ounces of mechanic in a bottle, MIB, to 1 gallon of fresh gasoline. Start engine and run for at least 10 minutes. Let engine stand for at least 8 hours before restarting. Continue use of mixed MIB fuel until gone. Use ethanol shield all the time to prevent fuel-related problems. Non-running engine, add 4 ounces of mechanic in a bottle, MIB, into an empty fuel tank and prime the MIB through the fuel system into the carburetor. Wait at least 8 hours before draining contaminated MIB from the fuel system and adding fresh fuel. Mix 2 ounces MIB to 1 gallon of fresh gasoline. Severely contaminated fuel systems let stand overnight or repeat if necessary. Maintenance, mix 1 ounce of MIB to 5 gallons of gasoline. This is a fuel additive, not a replacement for 2-cycle oil. This helps sometimes, but other times it does not, and the only solution is to clean and rebuild the carburetor. Here is my comprehensive carburetor and fuel answer that may give you some ideas. As engines sit or get older, fuel that is left in the carburetor can turn to gum and varnish and cause this and other problems. Also, any gasoline that was left in a gas can for a period of more than 30 days must be discarded because it also has begun to turn to varnish. Today's gasolines contain MTBE and alcohol. Ethanol, they turn to junk and garbage very quickly. Alcohol is partially water, H2O. And they call it oxygenated fuels. It is the oxygen that breaks down the organic compounds in the fuel and turns the gas to garbage, gum and varnish. The fuels we had just a few years ago had no alcohol in it and would store for longer periods of time before going stale. And fuel stabilizers do almost nothing to prevent the fuel from going bad with the changes in today's fuels. Do not buy gas from the discount stations. The discount stations get a reduced price on gas because they may be buying fuel that is nearly 30 days old already. You may be getting fuel that's nearly stale right from the pump when buying from a discount station. Purchase your fuel from the well-known stations such as Shell, BP, Sunoco, Phillips 66, etc. More than 70% of all of our repairs in our lawnmower business are due to this same issue. You most likely have dirt, gum, varnish, etc. in your carburetor plugging up the small passageways and jets in the carburetor. The carburetor must be removed from the engine. Clean all parts with carburetor cleaner and blow out all the small holes and passageways with compressed air. Remove all of the non-metallic parts since the carburetor cleaner will cause them to be disfigured, decompose, and plug the carburetor as time goes on. Wash the carburetor cleaner off of the metal parts by washing them in warm, soapy water, then rinsing with clean water. Dry them by blowing it off with compressed air. Make sure that all the passageways are blown dry before reassembling. Reassemble using a new carburetor rebuild kit. Do not try to reassemble without using a complete carburetor kit. You will just end up having to do the job again. Always clean the fuel tank and replace the fuel line when doing this repair, or you may have to do it all over again. The inside of the fuel line disintegrates over time and these small pieces of rubber will plug up the carburetor too. Dirt and water from a dirty fuel tank will also plug up the carburetor. Find the model, type and serial or code numbers off of the engine and take them to your local dealer to get the carburetor repair kit. If you do the work yourself, take pictures or at least make a drawing of where all the linkages, gaskets, and component parts go. Correct reassembly is critical. If the carburetor still doesn't work correctly, you may have to take it to someone who has an ultrasonic cleaning machine. This machine uses carb cleaner and ultrasonic vibrations to get the very small passageways clean when traditional methods fail. Here is where you can get an inexpensive ultrasonic cleaning machine. http://www.harborfreight.com/catalog/search/result. Category equals and Q equals ultrasonic plus cleaner. If you don't feel comfortable with this kind of repair, I would suggest sending it to a reputable shop. Here is a carburetor rebuild process. First, make sure that you have the correct complete carburetor repair kit. Now take special care when you take the carburetor apart to make sure that you watch and remember exactly how the gaskets come off. There are two types of carburetors: the float type carburetor and the diaphragm type carburetor. Below is the information for the float carburetor. The diaphragm carburetor is very similar, except that you need to remove the diaphragms and replace them. They will also have a needle and sometimes a seat that need to be replaced as well. Remove the float pin. It just pushes out. And remove the float carefully, so you can see how the float needle is attached. Some of them have a small wire spring holding it to the float. You will have to reinstall this spring when you reassemble the carburetor. Remove the float needle. Next, remove the float valve seat. Look around the carburetor and see if it has a small idle adjustment needle. Remove this needle if it has one. You are now done disassembling the carb. Do not take anything else out of the carb. Get a good carburetor cleaner. Preferably with a small hose you can attach to the nozzle of the can. Spray the carb cleaner all over the outside of the carburetor. This will loosen the dirt on the outside while you clean the inside. Now spray the cleaner through every hole and nook and cranny you can find on the inside of the carb. When you are finished with the spray, blow all of the passageway clean with compressed air from an air compressor. Also blow all of the dirt from the outside of the carburetor. Next, take the entire carburetor to the kitchen sink. Okay, maybe it would be better to get a big bowl. So you don't make your wife mad. And wash the entire carburetor with hot soapy dishwater. This is to make sure that all of the carburetor cleaner is completely washed from the carb. If it is not, you will deform the new gaskets and such that you install. Even if it is dry, now rinse in clear water and then blow the carb dry with the compressed air again. Reassemble the carb using the identical parts out of the carb kit as you took out. Install the float seat, then install the float needle and the float in the same position that you took them out. Check the float level after it is installed, making sure that when the carb is upside down with the float in the up position, the float should be nearly level with the body of the carburetor. Now reinstall the bowl gaskets the same as you took them off. Then install the bowl nut with the small gasket under it. Reinstall the small idle needle if it had one. There, you are done. Install the carburetor on the engine and you should be ready to go. If you need any more help with this, you can contact me here at this question. Even after you have given me a good rating. Please leave a good rating for me, as that is the only way I get paid for my time. You may also consider sending a bonus if I have been helpful. If you cannot give me one of the highest ratings, then please do not rate me at all until we discuss this answer further and you are happy with my answer.
Hi customer, thanks for your answer. I should have added that, 1. This machine has only been used about 6 times from new, and 2. I last used it about 8 weeks ago. Even though 8 weeks is not long for fuel to go stale, I would still expect a cough and a spit, even with 60-day-old fuel. Is it really the case that the tiny amount of fuel in the carb can gum up the jets so completely? I have never had this problem before, running Kawasaki 2-strokes or other Stihl 2-strokes. Are we to assume that fuel specifications have deteriorated, Or there are fuel additive packages which cause these problems. Am I to assume a thought, unless I use the machine every week, the fuel must be drained out each time and some sort of carb cleaner introduced? Again, never had to do this before. Glad of your advice.
Here is a breakdown of your carburetor. I am also including a service manual for your carburetor. Please also note that if your trimmer is less than 2 years old, Stihl will warranty your carburetor and replace the carburetor for free. They will need to install it and keep your old carb. Stihl also offers a new product called Moto Mix. It is super unleaded gas with their full synthetic oil already added to it. This fuel has a shelf life of 2 years after it is opened because there is no ethanol in it. The ethanol in today's gas is what causes it to go bad so fast, in almost a month. I hope this helps you out. If you need further assistance with any Stihl product, just let me know. Here is the service manual: http://wem.walbro.com/distributors/service-manuals/useries.pdf, and the breakdown. Yes, the fuel we have today will break down in less than 30 days and can cause this problem. This is because they have changed the formula of the gasoline we buy. Also, it is mandatory that you use premium gas. Regular 87-octane gas will cause major problems in all 2-cycle engines. It appears that John K. has found a breakdown of the carburetor for you. I had not been able to find that. Thanks, John. But the problem is still most likely in the carburetor and it needs to be cleaned and rebuilt. I would also check the spark and make sure that you have spark. If you do not, then we may have to look elsewhere for your issue, such as the ignition coil or shutoff switch. If you need any more help with this, you can contact me here at this question. Even after you have given me a good rating. Please leave a good rating for me, as that is the only way I get paid for my time. You may also consider sending a bonus if I have been helpful. If you cannot give me one of the highest ratings, then please do not rate me at all until we discuss this answer further and you are happy with my answer.
Most interesting information, gentlemen. But I am disturbed that we, the poor customers, get no information about such changes to fuel specifications which, in this case, appear to be likely to cost me a fair amount of money. Presumably I am not the only one either.
I agree, but the government is to blame here. All of the small engine manufacturers have been telling customers for many years that you cannot use old gas, and if you want to look it up in the web, you will find that information as well. Nearly 80% of all of our repairs in our business, and that is probably a conservative estimate, are caused by poor quality fuel. One of the ways to find out about the changes is to ask questions of your dealer when you go to use the dealer as a good source of information. You will not find out information when buying stuff from a discount store. Not that you have, but just for information. In any case, this is the most likely cause of your issue. Here is one article about gas. There are many others. More gasoline information. Even though many reports say so, fuel does not all come from the same place. And even though some of it can come from some of the same refineries, they have different additive packages that are specified by the different stations. The better stations like Shell, Phillips 66, Sunoco and BP have a much better additive package put into their gas. It runs much cleaner than the other gasolines. There is also what we call government gas. This is the gasoline that the government stores in many different storage facilities all across the U.S. in what is known as the Federal Gasoline and Oil Reserves. This is fuel that is stockpiled for use in emergency situations such as an oil embargo, or a hurricane that knocks out some refinery capabilities, or a war or some other emergency. They didn't use to stockpile much gasoline in the past because we were not using nearly as much fuel as we are now. Today's demand for gas leaves us with only about a 72-hour supply at any one time, and the problem is not crude oil. It is refining capacity. The US has not built any new refineries in the last 20 years. So if something happens to any of the refineries, we will be in a dire shortage. The government is now stockpiling gasoline reserves to try to make sure that we do not get into real gasoline shortages. The problem with this is that gasoline cannot be stored for much longer than 30 days before it turns stale and creates gum and varnish particles. On a molecular level, and these particles are what causes the engine damage and carburetor problems that we are talking about. The government must rotate this gas about every 30 days. Much of the government gas is sold to many of the discount gas stations at a lesser price than the fresh fuel from the refineries. That is why you see the Shell gasoline commercials that show the two engine valves in the ad. The valve out of the engine that used the good gas, in this case Shell, does not show any signs of gum and varnish deposits on it, where the valve that was out of the engine that used the gas from a discount station, has a large amount of the gum and varnish and carbon deposits. This is all caused by old gasoline. Gasoline that is even older than that will cause not only this problem but can also cause the piston and the cylinder to score and ruin the engine. It is very difficult for people to believe that this is happening, because many of the internet sites tend to try to make you believe that the gas is the same no matter where you buy it. Usually these sites are backed by the discount stations who want you to buy their gas. Go to a Shell station and ask them for some literature on the difference between their gasolines and the discount stations. You might even be able to go to their website and get some of this information. This information is not information that the gasoline companies or the government want the general public to know. The reason that I know this gasoline issue is because I have gone to many advanced service schools where they have tested the fuel from different stations, and we actually had to tear down engines that were run on the different gasolines and tell the instructors what gas was used in each different engine and what damage was done because of them. This is a very comprehensive multi-day failure analysis school that covered not only the different gasolines, but also the different oils. Mainly two-cycle oils. And there is a lot of difference in the oils, too. At least 70 to 80% of all of our repairs are due to this problem. Bad gasoline. We recommend that you do not use regular gas at all but use at least 89 octane mid-grade gas. The higher the octane, the more additives that are added. In any case, I hope this sheds some more information to help you understand about gasoline a little bit more. The reason that your owner's manuals say to use 87 octane gas is because the government says they have to. The actual statement is that they have to tell customers that they can use what is called universal fuel. What is universal fuel? It is fuel that is available in 100% of the United States and Canada. And there are a few remote areas of the United States and Canada that mid-grade, 89 octane, gasoline is not available. Also, when these manuals were written, gasoline was a lot better than it is now. I agree that in an automobile you do not need to use premium gas, but you will actually get better gas mileage by using the 89 octane gas. Actually, the biggest difference between the 87 octane gas and premium gas or even 89 octane gas is the rate of burn. Regular 87 octane gas actually explodes like a firecracker. All of the heat and power are transferred to the piston all at the same time, wasting a lot of the power and creating an enormous amount of heat. All at the same time. This heat usually cannot be dissipated through the piston to the cylinder and out to the cooling system fast enough to keep the piston from overheating. This is called detonation. This overheated piston can melt and cause engine damage. Premium gasoline does not explode. It actually burns more like a sparkler. Very evenly. This allows the power and the heat to be transferred more slowly and the energy is not wasted. Also, the engine runs cooler. You get better mileage because of the more efficient burning of the fuel. And you do not risk melted pistons. Now there is a twist to this for automobiles. Most of today's autos are now computer controlled. And you do not want to use gasoline that is more than 89 octane. The computer will be fooled and the engine will not run right. Why can you use the 89 octane gas in cars that have the computer set for 87? It is because the government and the oil companies got together a few years ago and have removed a lot of the additives that they used to put into the fuel. This was an attempt to keep the price of gasoline down. Although we don't realize it, the price of gas would be much higher if they still used all of the additives that they used to. The additives are actually one of the most expensive parts of gasoline. If you are old enough to remember, leaded gasoline, lead was not only a lubricant, but it was also what we call an octane booster. It actually didn't boost anything. What it did was slow the rate of burn so it would not burn as fast. Leaded regular gasoline was 90 octane. When they took the lead out of the gas, it became 87 octane gas. In addition, this is one of the reasons that they always said do not use the 87 octane gas in the older engines. Because it would ruin the engine. That is because these older engines were made to run on 90 octane gas. The more additives you take out of gas, the faster it will burn. In fact, you might be surprised to know that the 87 octane gas that we are using today is not really 87 octane at all. It is even less. But they do not want the general public to know this. It would start a real uproar. That is also one of the reasons that you must use the better gasolines with the better additive packages, and it should be 89 octane. Today's 89 octane burns more like the 87 octane of just a few years ago. Actually, there are 3 different methods for determining and mainly for reporting the octane rating of gasoline. Research octane number, RON. The most common type of octane rating worldwide is the research octane number, RON. RON is determined by running the fuel in a test engine with a variable compression ratio under controlled conditions, and comparing the results with those from mixtures of isooctane and N-heptane. 90 octane, petrol with the same knocking characteristics as a mixture of 90% isooctane and 10% heptane would have an octane rating of 90. Motor octane number, MON. There is another type of octane rating, called motor octane number, MON, or the aviation lean octane rating, which is a better measure of how the fuel behaves when under load, as it is done at 900 revolutions per minute instead of the 600 revolutions per minute of the RON, 2, 3. MON testing uses a similar test engine to that used in RON testing, but with a preheated fuel mixture, a higher engine speed, and variable ignition timing to further stress the fuel's knock resistance. Depending on the composition of the fuel, the MON of a modern gasoline will be about 8 to 10 points lower than the RON. Normally, fuel specifications require both a minimum RON and a minimum MON. Citation needed. Anti-knock index, AKI, in most countries, including all of those of Australia and Europe, the headline octane rating shown on the pump is the RON, but in Canada, the United States and some other countries, like Brazil, 4, the headline number is XXXXX average of the RON and the MON, called the anti-knock index, AKI, and often written on pumps as R+M/2. It may also sometimes be called the road octane number, RD on, pump octane number, PON, or R+M/2. Difference between RON and AKI. Because of the 8 to 10 point difference noted above, the octane rating shown in the United States is 4 to 5 points lower than the rating shown elsewhere in the world for the same fuel. See the table in the following section for a comparison. Back when the older manuals were written, we were using the older octane rating. That means that if they suggested using 87 octane gas back then, that you should use 91 or 92 now based on the new R+M/2 rating system. Here's some more information. In the advanced service schools and certification schools, we spent nearly 1.5 full days on nothing but gasoline and oils. The findings were that in all 2-cycle engines it was necessary to use premium gasoline of at least 92 octane. If regular 87 octane fuel is used in a 2-cycle engine, you would rapidly score the piston and cylinder due to a process called detonation. This has become even more necessary in the last few years because of the change in the formula of gasoline. One of the problems that has been occurring in our industry is the fact that many of the small engine technicians misdiagnose engine failures as no oil or insufficient oil failures when in fact the cause was low octane fuels. The appearance of the damaged piston is very similar. The way you can tell the difference between an insufficient oil failure and a low-octane failure is that the piston in a low-octane failure usually has a few places on the piston which appears fairly dark. This shows that there was oil in the unit when it failed. The poor lubrication failure usually does not have those very small dark spots on the piston. The addition of alcohol to the fuel several years ago has also caused major problems with the small engines and has necessitated the use of better fuels in the small engines. It is also very necessary to use a very good chainsaw oil such as Echo, Stihl or Husqvarna to name a few. Cheap 2-cycle oils used in these high-speed, high-compression engines will also cause the engine to be ruined. In addition, make sure that you do not use any gasoline that is over 30 days old. Fuel that is over 30 days old has begun a process that turns the molecules of gasoline into gum and varnish. If this fuel is used, those gum and varnish deposits will turn to a tar-like substance when it contacts the hot internal engine parts and will also cause the piston and cylinder to score and melt. There are very explicit pictures and explanations of all of these different failures located in the Advanced Service School workbook that was given to all participants. You may even be able to find these pictures on the Echo website. 41151.8656654282.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit JustAnswer.com/YTHI.